Hey, welcome everybody to With Thunderous Applause, a podcast where two friends get together to discuss the events and ideas that will shape our uncertain future. I am your host, Steve, along with my co host, Zach. What is up?
Nothing much, man. Just living life, watching movies. Watched Ant-Man, Quantumania.
Okay, how was that?
Eh.
I'm not really into superhero movies much at all.
Yeah, I watched all the old ones, and I'm just kind of like picking through the new stuff they come out with because like a lot of it doesn't sound very good, or it's like aimed at kids or something like that. So I'm just
Yeah, I actually say that, but while I had COVID, I watched Logan for the first time.
oh, it's a good movie.
It was pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was interesting. I kind of got lost because I was like, "Wait, where are all the other mutants?" They're just like they're all gone. And I was
Yeah,
like, "What? When that fucking happened?"
like I don't know, a few days ago.
Yeah, I
They're
just kind of
so
took it as a story told within this like sandbox, and that there's
yeah.
no implications to be drawn from it. Like,
He's old. So he probably outlived all the other, X-Men or something like that. I don't know.
oh, Professor X was still around.
Maybe he found a time chamber to hide in. I don't know. They do all kinds
Sounded
of
like
weird shit.
they had there'd been a conflict, and almost all of them had been eliminated. Is what it sounded like.
Ah, okay.
Basically a genocide, which was like the plot of the first couple movies,
Yeah, and the old
X-Men movies.
cartoons.
Yeah,
And a huge chunk of the comic books. They were getting genocided a lot, is what I'm getting at. People don't like mutants or what they represent.
yeah, exactly. Um, you know, it was okay. And then we watched Deadpool 2 today because Brooke kept bugging me about it.
Had you not seen it?
No, we actually saw it in the theater together.
Oh, okay.
And we watched Deadpool 1, I don't know, like a month and a half ago or something. She's like, let's watch Deadpool 2. And I was like, with the writer's strike and the actor's strike, like,
Yeah.
it probably will not be made at all. If it does, it will be a very long time before they even begin.
Yeah. Thank goodness for YouTube and other, media where people don't have to work for a writers guild and they can keep making content.
Yeah, at least there's something, right? Although I think I've reached the end. That's a conversation maybe we can have offline.
Oh, okay.
We're going to try and do a tight show today, I think.
The end of the internet.
Monday, which is our kind of intended to be kind of our long form day.
Yeah.
Where instead of hitting like a bunch of news items, we really try and focus on some kind of thing, issue, event, or idea. And phenomena, and examine it a little more closely and see if it is indeed the way that it's portrayed, because there is kind of, as we go through this process of civilizational collapse, as the institutions and the idea, more importantly the idea systems that have kind of they kind of dictate how we behave as a society.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are changing.
Yeah.
And so always want to examine ideas within the context of that idea system and what it means. So today we're talking about retail apocalypse, which is something, had you heard much about this at all? Or did I just see a handful of things in close proximity and then think we need to talk about this?
I hadn't talked about it, so I think you might have just seen a whole lot of things in quick succession. But I mean, even before you had mentioned it, like I had seen the phrase once or twice, but not investigated any further. And so kind of knew that, thefts were up and places were closing, but I hadn't like drawn it into this wider web of like everything, going the way of the dodo.
Yeah, and we're going to cover some of that, but that's ultimately what drew me to this issue. Is I saw some headline that's like, oh, big box retailer is closing stores because of theft. And I was like, usually they make the decision based on profitability, and I could not conceive of a situation where their thefts were so fucking bad that they would close stores. And I wanted to examine that issue.
Right.
I still think that they're saying that it's closing because of theft, but the reality is it probably wasn't very profitable to begin with, or it has some other issue like staffing shortages because they're unwilling to pay the wages that the local labor market is supporting.
Yeah.
Or you're unwilling to pay those wages. So I don't know. I thought it kind of smelled like bullshit, and to me, it kind of smelled like propaganda too, right? Because I'm seeing everything through like a lens of an election's coming up, because this is when, like, for the last year or so, things kind of seemed calmed down and kind of just like monotonous and mundane, because there wasn't something to sensationalize to try and pit basically two factions of the ruling class against each other, with the masses and attempting to divide the masses amongst themselves as well, to help facilitate the elite's power game, which is ultimately what we're in right now. Yeah, it's the old like land-based, business-based ruling class versus this newer kind of financial speculation and like tech and stuff, and all the new billionaires.
Right. Having quickly
And so,
displaced all the old billionaires.
yeah, which has a different model. Like, they still rent seek, right? Just like a landlord would, but they seek rents in like, I think in some more far reaching ways, term like intellectual property and shit like that.
Yeah.
At any rate, we're going to talk about Retail Apocalypse. So let's cue our first clip. This was a late addition to the agenda here. And that is because it takes place locally to me. Reading is also a place we've talked about a lot, right? Because we talked about American Civil War and Christian fascism and QAnon.
All good stuff, yeah.
After the 2020 election, the county of Shasta, which is where Reading is, like made national headlines basically because they spent like tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars to change their election system because they bought into the Dominion voting machine thing. And so now they're getting sued for breach of contract with the voting machine companies. And also, these are the lawsuits that wound up costing fucking Fox News and Newsmax or some other kind of right-wing media organization like fucking shit ton of money. I forget what it was. I think it was in the hundreds of millions of dollars. But they wound up they got sued for defamation, I think it was.
Okay.
Anyway, because Fox News and them were talking shit about the voting machines.
Yeah. I remember that being in the news a while back.
Yeah, well, they got sued for defamation because they're basically like, if governments don't want us to use it, this is our entire market. Like, you basically almost destroyed our entire ability to make money based on absolutely no fucking evidence.
Yeah.
And that's what the court showed. Some people think that's, right, that might be the official reason why Tucker Carlson got fired. Although, of course, they'll be like, no, it's because he's anti-war, which is like, could be true, but it's also because he cost them a shit ton of money.
Sometimes I forget he existed. It's lovely.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought this was really interesting. And the one thing interesting I wanted to talk about here was, of course, so this is a place that's already ripe. This is like an epicenter of right-wing organizing nationally. It often gets ignored because it's in California, but like this would be like a very good barometer for like if you just watched Reading politics, it would serve as, I think, a very effective barometer of right-wing politics nationally. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, I would. Having lived in the region, I can say that that is true, and having interactions with people that live there.
Yeah.
But,
it's a goddamn shame because the tap room for like one of the regional breweries that makes like my
Jesus.
favorite beer ever is in Reading.
Yeah. It's too
I love
hot
beer.
there.
What's that?
So it gets too hot.
In Reading?
Yeah.
Reading gets fucking hotter than Chico, which is hard for me to wrap my head around.
I mean,
but I guess
isn't it just like flat and paved?
Oh no, it's very hilly, but it's what
okay.
it is it's at the very top of the valley. So there's like, and then the Trinity Alps are up to the northwest. So like they get like no influence from the ocean. And so like all the valley heat rises up and kind of gets fucking smushed up in the top of the valley because there's like further south in the valley, like we inevitably get some kind of air exchange with the Pacific Ocean via the Bay Delta. So like the Delta breeze is what they call it, but the winds come in from the ocean and kind of cool off a huge section of the valley. And Reading is far enough away from that and far enough away from the Pacific, plus with the Trinity Alps between them and the Pacific, that they get like really no moderating influence from the ocean.
Yeah.
It's just fucking hot. Not all that much hotter than here, but it's definitely hotter. And their nights, they more consistently, I think, have nights that stay warm. Our nights cool off a little bit.
Those last 5 degrees make all the difference.
Yeah, and especially at night. Like,
yeah,
the next few nights here, I don't know about in Fresno, but like it's not cooling off. Like our nighttime temps are like 75.
Yeah.
Which is always the fucking worst. It's like 105 during the day and 75 at night. Like you never really get reprieve.
Right.
Because 75 is like comfortable when you're not moving, but it's not enough to like take the heat out of objects and everything else.
Yeah.
The soil surface, right?
You're still getting all that warming.
So one of the
still
things
94 degrees right now here.
It's what?
It was still 94 degrees here.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what it is. I was a little clammy being outside, but I did want to point this out because I thought this was really interesting. They're protesting Senate Bill 553, which, according to this article and probably organizers for that protest, said is a bill that would require training for employees. And then this is a weird way of phrasing it. I didn't quite understand it. And not require them to confront shoplifters who already are charged with a misdemeanor for anything worth less than $950.
My understanding of reading that was just that they're going to get trained on how to react to thefts and basically react by not reacting. It's more along the lines of like, hey, we see that guy doing that, like, take down a description or something like that, but don't worry about chasing him or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's what I read.
Yeah. And so I actually, if you click that link, it goes to the state's website. And we don't need to do it right now, but you can read the executive summary and you can flip through the actual changes to the code that are written into the law. I saw nothing related to what it is. It requires you to basically brief your employees on workplace violence hazards.
Yeah.
Just like when you are in a machine shop and you're required to tell your employees, hey, this machine is dangerous and can take your fucking finger off, right?
Yeah.
You're required to understand what that workplace hazards are.
Right.
They're just expanding that to include workplace violence. And it's basically like, and the employer has to do training and the employer has to keep record of violent encounters. So if like someone comes in and is having a shitty day and like starts yelling at an employee, Like that has to get documented. The state wants to start keeping records on that shit.
Yeah.
And there's nothing forbidding them from engaging with a shoplifter.
Yeah, it just says not require.
Right, but they're not going to. The employer cannot compel them to put their life and limb in danger on behalf of the employer.
Correct.
And so, I don't understand what the fuck they're protesting. I guess is my point.
I think it goes on, and they're under the opinion that it's like soft on criminals, and basically saying like, hey, you know, if someone comes in and we don't even try to stop them, that's just money down the drain. Like, I don't remember if it's this one or another one later on down the line, but basically the sentiment also is like the police aren't going to help you because it's not a lot of money.
Yeah, that was a California Insider clip.
Okay,
where we didn't know where to put it.
Oh, got it.
That's the one.
I still don't know where to put it.
No, it's okay. I actually was thinking about putting it at the beginning, so you can play it next if you want. I don't think it's that important. I think that we could honestly skip it. The thing is like, oh, we need more cops, which is where my fucking mind went when I saw this, which is why I wanted to talk to you about it today. It's like, I'm like, oh, they're just, it's just like we discussed people leaving California, right? Oh, they're leaving because of the taxes. But then when you fucking ask them, they're like, no, I just couldn't fucking afford a house.
Right.
A few $1,000s in taxes isn't a big deal. It's a few $1,000s a month for fucking rent. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and for me, like, you know, this rings a little bit false. It's like, no, like their answer is more cops. Well, then you're still going to pay a higher price. It's just going to go from, you know, paying more at the store to paying more in your taxes for the police. So it's like either way, you're losing out on money. And it's been proven that like the police don't solve small crimes like this very often.
So, but it does take public resources because the police go to the store and then arrest and book.
Right.
So that they're charged and all that stuff, right? And then the court system has a criminal fucking hearing and all that stuff to like ping them with a misdemeanor theft or whatever. And it happens all the fucking time.
Right.
But I could not find an article. I remember reading a long time ago, many years ago, that the towns like Chico, because I was researching like how you might justify a different way of taxing businesses here, which I thought a gross receipts tax would be the best option, because right now they tax businesses based on the number of employees. So like very, very profitable businesses that have very few employees, like engineering and architectural firms.
Right. They don't pay a lot of taxes.
Receipts, they make a lot of money, but they only have a couple employees. Right. Like they pay significantly less tax than like a restaurant, like a mom and pop restaurant with a really thin margin, but they just have to have a lot of employees. Right. And they pay more in business tax. And I thought that was fucked up. And also, like, you have all these box stores and corporate chains and shit that move in who, like, them paying a few $100s for a business license because they have 50 employees or whatever isn't a big deal. But they fucking make a shit ton of money and take that money to the headquarters and then distribute it to shareholders. So it goes to where all the rich people live, which isn't our community. So the thing is, like, we should tax receipts, and how would you make that work? And one of the things that I was thinking of is companies like Walmart demand, especially place. I don't know why so many people steal from Walmart. Like, isn't Walmart supposed to be like the cheapest place to get shit? And then that's where everybody fucking steals from.
Yeah, but it's the only place to get shit a lot of times. That's my hypothesis. After watching some of the videos, is like Walmart swoops in, puts all the other businesses out of business with low prices, doesn't pay shit, so the people that work there can't really even afford to buy there. And so you have a ton of theft because you put a whole bunch of people out of business, and now you have a bunch of your own employees stealing your shit. And so, like, nobody's got any money, theft goes up, wages are suppressed. Like, the people that work at Walmart
It's a
are
vicious
often
cycle.
on. Well, no, really, it is.
Yeah.
And then the people that work at Walmart are like, getting food stamps and shit like that a lot of times.
Yeah, and so that's the thing, is that I remember reading this a while ago that like cities spend a considerable amount of money, so much theft at a Walmart that there's actually like police have their own parking spot
Yeah, it's
and
like
would
that here.
actually be there most of the time unless they got called somewhere else.
Yeah, it's like that here.
And so they're basically there to provide security services and
Right.
or book take people from the loss prevention folks and then book them or whatever. And so there's just like permanent city the employees the city pays for that all they do is work for Walmart because Walmart's not figuring out a better way to manage their fucking inventory.
Right. And their justification was that it cost too much to send individual units out there over and over again, or taking all the reports, and so they wanted to have a deterrent right there, since they pretty much had someone there all day long anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, but when you do a search for that, and I was trying to find specific numbers for that, what it costs cities, all these, loss prevention for all these big fucking corporate chains, I could not find that figure. But when you look, you see a lot of stuff about that. Walmart costs X amount of dollars in fucking welfare or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not what we're talking about today. Moving on, what clip are we doing next? Thieves steal.
Yeah.
Well, it is the latest flash mob robbery. A group of thieves getting away with about $300,000 worth of items from a high-end store at the Americana.
Eyewitness News reporter Jaysha Patel is live in Glendale with the details. Yet again, Jaysha.
Yet again.
That's right, John Leslie. And it was a brazen burglary that happened in broad daylight here at the St. Laurent store. And it was all caught on video, which has gone viral online. Take a look. You can see that group of people running out of the store around 5 in the evening yesterday. Glendale police is calling it a flash mob burglary and says 30 to 40 people were involved. Now, the suspects escaped in about 20 separate cars and again getting away with about $300,000 worth of merchandise. Now, luckily, there were no injuries or weapons used, but we've seen many videos of burglaries like this one recently. And a report by the National Retail Federation last year said LA was the metro area that was most affected by organized retail theft in the country. Back in June, California Attorney General Rob Bonta announced a new partnership between the Justice Department and more than a dozen retailers and online marketplaces like Target and Amazon. Now, the goal is to crack down on retail crime, and the online and in-person retailers signed a pledge to increase information sharing between them and law enforcement. Brick and mortar sellers also have to maintain records of theft and police reports, and the Justice Department also created an online portal where people can submit complaints and tips about crimes. Back out here live, as for this burglary in Glendale, police are still looking for some more video of what happened yesterday. So far, no arrests have been made.
Well, it is the latest.
Well, ain't that fun?
So I don't know why we watched the whole thing. I think it was just kind of just an interesting news piece about.
I didn't know what the company was that they were talking about, and so I was like, okay, let me look it up.
What company was this?
The Yves Saint Laurent. It's like a fashion store that is incredibly rich, and I was just like, I thought to myself, I'm like, if you're gonna steal big. Like if you steal groceries, you have to do it again next week. If you steal $300,000 worth of bags, you're good for a while. You can feed your family for a while.
And so this organized retail crime is a phrase they use, and it is something they mentioned. The Attorney General had a task force. There's a bunch of stuff on it. It does seem to be somewhat of a problem, but again, why? Right? You've made it. We have a system where it's fucking like hard work's never going to get you ahead.
Right.
Like I'm sure most of those people probably work pretty hard and they're like, fuck it. Right.
Yeah, it's not working.
Or they work pretty hard, but they're like, I'm never going to fucking have shit that's that nice, even though I'm told that I'm worth less unless I have the nice things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not excusing it. I think it's fucking stupid. I definitely think that I have zero issue with property damage or theft under certain conditions, right? Like the whole Pretty Boy Floyd line from that Woody Guthrie song, right? Where he talks about Pretty Boy Floyd, that where the line is some will rob you with a 6-gun, some with a fountain pen. And essentially who is the actual thief here? The bank, the guy who just went and stole cash deposits from the bank, insured cash deposits from the bank, or the bankers in the back who are actually like stealing people's livelihoods and shit through foreclosures and all that other shit.
That's funny. I've had a saying for a while where it's like, hey, a guy in jeans will take your wallet. A guy in a 3-piece suit will take your life savings. Never heard that song before, but
it's the same sentiment. I think there's a kind of universality to it.
Yeah, we all recognize it's terrible. I worked at a bank, so I saw a lot of people with 3-piece suits.
Because the real theft is the theft of the masses, from the masses. And I was thinking this because there's this song that went viral, and I wanted to talk about it, but we had already kind of settled on this topic. But yeah, it went viral,
Thursday.
And the guy's talking, and we should maybe go over it on Thursday or something. But yeah, it was just kind of dumb. Just someone who's kind of disconnect. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's a working class anthem," but it never had that vibe. It was like, "Oh, these fucking people are abusing the system, and the government taxes us too much," and whine. It never really got to that core of, the rich are stealing from everybody else. I don't know where I was going with that. All right, what's the next one? Not that one.
Oh, this.
Oh yeah, this is one of the articles that they came across. It's like amid record-breaking retail theft.
Yeah.
And while that's
true statement.
Yeah. Is that the reason they're closing?
Yeah, exactly.
Amid record-breaking retail theft. But that could be, they could have made the decision 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, they should really start regulating.
Like, hey, we're not really making money. We opened some of these stores in large cities. Walmart's really a fucking suburban, Midwestern, South kind of brand. Like, people in Portland, Oregon are going to their fucking boutiques, and there's lots of poor people in Portland. There's lots of thrift stores and other places to go find interesting things and shop. There's probably a cultural aversion to places like Walmart. There could be a lot of reasons why Walmart is not that profitable, and theft might not be that reason. Go ahead. You're going to read some.
I was going to say it just says amid, so it's not really saying due to. Just this is happening, and
at the same time.
Coincidence? Coincidence? You decide. Let's see. Yeah, so it's going to close the last 2 locations in Oregon, implying that there were more that closed earlier. Let's see.
Can you summarize this while I step away real quick? I apologize. All
right. Let's see. A whole bunch of closures are going to happen. 600 employees lost. And then they state in an interview with the CEO that theft is an issue and it's higher than what it has historically been. And he goes on to say that prices will be higher or stores will close. And so obviously they're going to try to keep the stores in business as long as they can, because they got to extract as much wealth out of the community as they can before they leave it in shambles. I'm sure they have an algorithm for it. Let's see. And then, it says other stores shuttering their doors in Portland has become more common. And I mean, that makes sense to me. Like, you got a whole lot of people there, but then there's only so much room for companies, really. Let's see. small and large businesses can't sustain doing business, and they claim that they have no recourse against criminal behavior. And so, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like, you've heard before, stores and individuals, especially in that, Redding article, are saying that, the thieves are having their way. And they're not.
Well, yeah, but I also call bullshit on that, and that's another complaint, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that first article we looked at, it's like, it's a misdemeanor if it's less than $1,000,
right?
And you're like, yeah, it would be. We've already in our past as human beings under, basically the same legal regime that we have now, right? We determined that punishing people for minor amounts of theft, like severe punishment for minor theft, is not proportional to the harm they cause,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we don't really prosecute the people doing the big theft, right?
Yeah.
And the real corruption and criminality, right? Like, we find a faceless corporation a few $100 million for creating a fucking opiate epidemic. Not coincidentally, probably the opiate epidemic has something to do with the rise of fucking retail theft. Right? Because junkies got to get their fucking fix.
Junkies got to get their opiates, man.
Yeah, man. Like, and it's a sad state of affairs. I don't think we should punish the junkies for that. I want to punish the fucking pharmaceutical companies. But
and it happens, but it's never enough.
Yeah, and it never hurts the individuals who made the decisions because they hide behind corporate indemnity, limited liability. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I mean, in that instance, the only proper answer can be to just make the punishments so incredibly harsh that you got to think like 2 or 3 times about it as a business, just like you would as someone out, living their life, who's stealing something worth $1,000 and getting a felony.
Yeah, the thing is too is the indemnity, like, that was made to like not so that like you could be entrepreneurial and take risks without without worrying about like destroying your entire future, right?
Yeah, it wasn't meant to cover up your blatantly criminal behavior.
Look at most small businesses, and when they decide to open a small business, they have so much skin in the game that if they do, it's serious. It might not bankrupt them. It could potentially bankrupt them. But it's certainly like it definitely affects their long-term quality of life, right? Whereas like, indemnification, like under corporate charter or whatever, like they can just do criminal things and as individuals through the company, and it's a check valve, right? We can do criminal things through this legal vehicle called a corporation, but that the consequences can't flow back the other way.
Right.
And it just the whole fucking system is broken. But we're talking about retail apocalypse. I think that Walmart, that article did mention, like, there's just other options. Like more people are shopping online.
Yeah, and that definitely doesn't get covered by these brick and mortar stores, because why would they want to talk about their competitors? But
but rents, right, for small businesses in a downtown district, like the fact that like banks and private equity firms and shit gobbled up fucking commercial real estate over the last decade, and just keep raising rents because their shareholders need to continue to get growth out of their portfolio.
Right.
Like, it's just not sustainable.
Oh,
like,
no, of course
small
not.
Businesses can't pay the fucking leases. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, yeah, that, and then the individual can't keep getting enough raises or moving to slummier and slummier places for very long. Like, a lot of people are already at the bottom. Where do you go from there? So
yeah, I saw a list of like the top 10 most shoplifted things, and the most interesting thing was of course, it's videos of black people stealing fucking really nice things from stores, like, and then they just put that on loop, right?
Yeah.
Which there's all sorts of subtle racist bullshit going on there too. But it's interesting that luxury items actually fall like there's I think they showed a video of them. They broke like a jeweler's window or something, or were stealing off a jeweler rack or whatever.
Mhm.
Like luxury items is eighth.
Oh, and what gets stolen? Yeah.
Yeah, of what's getting stolen. It's remarkable how much of it is fucking mundane. The fact that I saw on there, it was like intimate products was like fourth. So people who steal fucking condoms,
yeah.
and lube and shit, and you're like,
Yeah.
from drugstores, because pharmacies were like the
Hey,
number
man,
one most stolen from.
that's
And
going
I'm
to be a misdemeanor, and they're probably not even going to come after you. And now you just saved yourself 18 years of a child. Zach endorsed.
Right. I mean, realistically, all of that shit should be free.
Yeah. And it is in certain areas, but you can't always get to them at the times that they're open. Like, I'm almost positive that on the campus I was going to for the last year, there is a room you can just walk up to and grab.
You know, there's a health clinic, and usually like they fucking have condoms in a container on the, like you would popsicles, right? Like,
Yeah.
just go grab a handful. But the thing is that you're right. The clinic door does get locked at some point.
Yeah.
But like where we were, like, or at Chico State when I was a freshman or whatever, when I'd be out hanging out at downtown, not knowing where to go, just being on the street. Couldn't go to bars. They'd have people from the university and volunteers and shit, like just passing shit out.
Yeah.
And they would be like, no, okay, you have a handful of roommates. Cool. Like, put these in a place where you all can get them, like on the kitchen counter. And they did that to like normalize it. So like it was super common to go to like a house party or something, and there was just like a jar, like a glass jar of fucking rubbers on the counter, which is just normalize it, dude. Just normalize it.
It's very thoughtful.
And that's exactly what it did. Sorry, go ahead.
It's very thoughtful. It makes you a good host.
Yeah, and I just think it's interesting too that when you look at those categories of what's getting stolen, it's not
big ticket
luxury
items, jewelry.
The electronics. I think was sixth or something like that.
Well, and the thing is, it's so hard to stay under 950 with electronics because, like, you grab 2 phones, you're probably in violation right there.
Oh yeah, you'd be felony theft.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and to say like, oh, the state doesn't care because it's all low level and they've made this really high threshold. Yeah, thanks for getting us back to the point.
Yeah.
This really low threshold, like 1,000 is a pretty low threshold in the grand scheme of things.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, you can't get most laptops for that much. Like, there are bottles of liquor that cost that much. They're rare.
Well, if you did like organized retail theft, right? Like those
Yeah.
places like box stores, I think was actually third. Or hardware, it was hardware stores. And I could just imagine, so you have a house that you own because like it was your parents, and then like they're super old and you live there, so it's going to be your house, right? And the water heater goes out, and so you don't have fucking hot water at home, but you can't afford $1,000 for a new water heater,
Right.
You wait until you know the staff at Lowe's is all fucking it's like late at night or whatever, and they're all distracted doing their own thing, and you just push through the door and then fucking pop out and have someone in the pickup truck ready to go as soon as you load it up, right? Like, and you steal a water heater for $1,000. Like, does that make you a fucking monster?
No. Well, and I mean, it all kind of like leads to maybe the things that we like pretty much need to survive shouldn't be left up to being employed.
Yeah, or being so expensive, because I'm sure everybody that steals has some kind of job somewhere. They're not, and sometimes stealing is compulsive.
Oh, I'm
to
just saying
say it's not.
I'm saying food should be free.
Oh, food, yes.
Yeah.
And I even think things like that, a water heater, you should be able to be like, my water heater is like old and broken and really inefficient, and like there should be something where it's like, okay,
I have paid my citizen insurance, aka taxes. I would like something now.
Yes, exactly. All right, what's
So
next?
Live. We got.
Is this from California Insider?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember in San Francisco a couple of years ago, there was a Target changed their reporting mechanism. I don't know if it's software, I'm not sure exactly how to do it. But in 1 month, they accurately reported thefts taking place at the Target in terms of when they intervened and there was an identifiable theft. It caused throughout the state for that month, throughout the city of San Francisco, for property crimes reports to double in 1 month because of one target. It's rampant. That's only part of the picture. The other part of the picture that no one is really talking about publicly is the employees that don't want to come to work and be exposed to that because of it being told don't contact anyone, what might happen, and the shoppers that stop coming to stores. You just had Nordstrom's in San Francisco close after 35 years. They're one of their hallmark stores that is a huge store in San Francisco closed because theft and people not wanting to come there to shop or people not wanting to come there to work. If you walk anywhere near in that area, it's very obvious to anyone why it is that happened.
Okay, first of all, if you just go down there, it's obvious. No, it's not obvious. Because that's you going with your biases and being like, oh, it's clear as day, because you just see it and then believe it without ever like thinking to stop and slow down and question it. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, rents in San Francisco are fucking notoriously high. Most people don't go to department stores anymore. Because if they want fucking perfume, they'll go to a specialty makeup perfume store, right? Or they're buying some boutique, or they're buying from some online boutique.
Yep.
Or they actually know someone who is making like high-end fragrances, right? Because there's a lot of boutique, startup kind of small
I was just
businesses
thinking
for that luxury shit. Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking also, like, a lot of times when people do go to the stores, they go there to sample and then they do buy it online.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so clothing.
Yeah.
Why would I dress to the brands and styles that your buyers negotiated with the manufacturer so that it's most beneficial to both of you for your profit margin? Like, how should that have bearing on the fashion I choose? Right. Again, Nordstrom and malls around the country, which Nordstrom usually is an anchor store, they're fucking dying or closing everywhere. I think we have a Nordstrom in Chico that we went into. It's either Nordstrom or JCPenney. I forget. Either way, it's one of those kind of anchor stores on the end of the mall.
Yeah.
And we walked through it. I was looking for like a polo shirt or like a collared shirt or whatever. Very few options. There was fucking like 6 employees spread across a massive store, a ton of inventory, taking up a ton of space. That takes a ton of energy to fucking heat and cool. And it was just inventory. And there was like very few people shopping. Very few.
The Forever 21 at our mall is getting to be pretty sad. It used to be 3 stories apparently, and now they only use the bottom one, and like the back half of it is very sparse. It's just like and really shoes and clothes were kind of like the last bastion of the brick and mortar store, because like it's still arguably easier to go to the store, find the one you want, find it in the size that you need, try it on, and get out of it. But then it is to back and forth with Amazon, even if the shipping's free, from Prime or whatever. Like, it's still, you're wasting like 4 to 10 days trying to get a pair of pants.
Yeah, I can see a pair of shoes. You want one that
and then shoes. Yeah. So I could see like those, unless the issue with shipping is solved and it actually manages to actually cost less or equal to what the other stores are paying.
Right. So at any rate, I thought that was interesting. There's a lot of reasons that Nordstrom could close. Theft could be one of them. Probably not really. Rents in San Francisco are really high, and people probably just aren't shopping there. Because why would you when you live in a city with a ton of other stuff? Like, that you can get the same things anywhere. Plus, again, it's this model. It's the online shopping model, but it's also the warehouse model. Right? Like, in this shipping thing where you can just order, like, Brooke rented dresses online.
Huh,
She just ordered
okay.
5 of them. She could
Yeah.
get, she needed 2, but she could get 5 for, whatever flat price. And then the ones that she's like, this doesn't quite fit me the way I want, didn't have to worry about it because she had 5 she had shipped to her and she just needed to pick 2 of them.
Yeah.
There and then she sends them back.
Yeah.
And that's much better than going to Nordstrom and paying $500 for a fucking dress that looks like the dresses of everybody else that shops at Nordstrom, because they only have, like,
5 designs, if that.
It's fucking crazy.
It's very bleak. We went to Mervin's, maybe not Mervin's. Anyway, we went to one of those ones, and very empty, and like only a very limited number of choices. Like, no matter your body type, you got a few more as it went to the smaller sizes, but like not very many choices. I'd say like 10 to 15.
Yeah, bro. And I was like, well, we're here. I'm going to buy some boxer briefs. Because, like, it's something that's like, I'd been thinking I should probably, like, start cycling out some of the ones that are getting kind of thinner and rattier.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll get a couple packs and then, or, get a pack of boxer briefs. Then I can start rotating these other ones out.
Yeah.
And of course, they didn't have my fucking size.
Yeah.
Because I am an adult male of an average size. And so, like, I have probably the most in demand size, right?
Tons of small, though.
What's that?
I said there's always tons of small, but they keep ordering the same number. And they always order the same number of small. Stop.
And you would think that the people that ran the inventories would be like, let's stock a lot less of the small.
Yeah.
And charge a little more.
Do the opposite of what they're doing right now. Charge the small people more. Fuck you.
But at any rate, yeah, it's interesting because I think that there's a lot of reasons it's happening. And I think that it's interesting that it keeps like, they keep almost trying to force it on you, right? Like, they're closing because of the theft.
Right.
Because what they're trying to do is trying to put, and this is kind of like, elite journalists, this class, right? I told you it was about this war between these classes, right? Or not, they're the same class, they're the ruling class, but they're different factions of the ruling class, which is coincidentally what led to the American Civil War. And pretty much every, like, major civil conflict within a state is caused by various factions of its ruling class going to war with each other. Yeah.
It's the American.
We're not in charge.
It's the American nouveau riche.
Yeah, exactly. So then you have this class of people, business owners, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, it must be this theft. So they're even trying to shift the blame, not to the other ruling class, but to say that there's some kind of defect in the American masses. Right.
Yeah. And hey, man, like, go fight a war with your own people instead of paying attention to the fact that we're, like, robbing every last cent that you have.
Oh yeah. And it's also, like, it's meant to make people not feel safe. Oh my God. Did you see all those colored boys going and stealing jewelry or whatever? Right. Like,
we need more police.
We need more police, more surveillance.
Yeah.
Right. We need to start doing pre-crime on this people, like start monitoring people's emails. So when they start sending WhatsApp messages to each other about getting together to do a big theft, like, we can get ahead of them and stop them and arrest them and throw them in prison for it. Like, fucking crazy, man. And it's just really, I'm sure it's a factor, but guess what? Another article we'll read, maybe the next one, kind of almost points the finger at fucking automatic checkouts.
Really?
They said a survey, they found out like something like 45% of automatic, like, self checkouts had issues. And, like, I saw other articles that were talking about Walmart, and they're like, actually a huge increase in our theft, or maybe Target. They said, one Target alone, like, completely transformed the statistics and made it look awful because it was so bad at that Target.
Well, they said like
that
1
Target could have
month
just started counting losses from
differently.
the self-checkout better or whatever.
Well, and the way he talked about it, he made it sound like a blip. Like it wasn't like, oh, it went up and stayed up. As he said, there was 1 month where it went and like, doubled or something like that. And I was just like, okay, and then what? And then it went, it went back to the, back to the norm. What's it called? Something, returning to the mean.
No, I think what they were trying to say in that is that like one Target decided, they didn't say how they were changing their statistics, but they kind of implied that they improved their statistic or their record keeping, right? And just by them actually starting to count all the theft, there was so much theft that it caused the entire region or the entire state's theft rate to double that month.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to imply that one Target had so much fucking theft that it made the state look like they doubled their rate. But the reality is we don't know what that record keeping was.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, like how much you want to bet like there was a manager who was responsible for like a lost truck or something like that. And he was like, that is now theft.
No. But you're absolutely right. What is the consequence? The theft. We don't know what number that was and what they're keeping. They're implying that it's theft, but they just said Target. I just don't see it. I saw other numbers. They're like, oh yeah, Walmart is like this. Walmart in this town is like in Ohio is like the most fucking stolen from Walmart. In the figure I saw, which granted is an old figure, it's probably worse now, especially with inflation. They said $60,000 a year, and I'm like, I just don't see how $60,000 a year at the worst place in the country can translate into this thing that you're saying where like 60 grand is nothing.
It's a rounding error. It's a rounding error.
It's not. Yeah. For a Target, it's fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Like like I looked because as I said earlier, I was thinking about the best way to do this is gross receipts tax. The city of Chico with a fucking 0.5%, I think is what I did, or 0.1%. I think it was 0.5% gross receipts tax on businesses. The fucking Target in Chico alone would produce something like fucking $120,000 of revenue to the city. And so even if they were losing 60, which is not, it's the worst place in the country was 60,000 a year.
Right.
The worst single store in the country was 60. So if they're doing $20,000 in fucking losses at Target, like, should we spend billions of dollars expanding the surveillance state? Should we spend tens of millions of dollars putting a bunch of cops outside of every fucking Target and Walmart? Like,
I would say the cops and the surveillance people.
Fucking theft. Holy shit! Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I would think that the cops would agree with that statement. Absolutely, there need to be more of them, and I think that the rich would agree with that same statement as well, and also ask for more cops.
Yeah, and the remarkable thing is that they're expect like some preliminary data is saying all these losses that they're saying is theft is actually due to, and I wish I had more time to do better research because I did find a couple things that started to paint a picture that a lot of the increased losses that businesses are experiencing are related to the fucking self-checkouts. Because either the machines aren't counting stuff properly, and so it's an inventory thing. When someone scans something, if it doesn't scan, they punch a number in, and it takes that item out of inventory and treats it as sold. Right? And all of a sudden, they're missing. They go to do inventory on the first of the month or whatever, and they're like, "Whoa, we're missing fucking 500 grand worth of fucking product. What the fuck?" But it turns out it's just going through the self-checkouts, and the machine's not fucking counting it. And he might be even people might still be paying for it, and it's still showing up as a loss.
Yeah,
because it's not being counted. Inventories aren't being counted properly with these stupid machines, and also those machines made it easier for people to steal because now they look legitimate going through the line, but they're like,
gotta go. I like the machines personally because they're going to put more people out of a job, and then maybe they'll get pissed off enough to do something about it. Bring about the pain.
I'm just simply saying that there was a major technological change that took place in retail stores.
Yeah.
right around the time that they started reporting these massive losses and being like, oh, it's theft, because you have a handful of high profile ones that get plastered on social media. And then it's just like trafficking, right? Or
Right.
or any other thing where they take
Any
like
other thing in the news or on social
the
media
most
at all.
minor kind of, it happens, but not very often. And then they fucking are like, because you see
In
it
your
all the
eyeballs.
time,
Yeah.
because it's viral in your feed, like you think that it happens all the time.
Absolutely.
Let's just flip through some quick stats on here because we're already we're about time.
This is U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and they talk about organized crime, or I love the organized retail crime because it's orc. It's fantastic. That's what orcs should be in D&D from here on out, which is a bunch of thieves.
They are not victimless crimes. I do feel bad for people, for like workers that get confronted.
Yeah, and that's the
which
thing.
is what that state bill is supposed to do.
They're the only ones that I feel sorry for in this whole endeavor are the people on the floors who have to deal with every last aspect of this. You know, their bosses, telling them like, you should have done more to stop them. And then, if they did stop them, you shouldn't have done that. Our insurance doesn't cover it. Mixed messages and shit like that. And then retail losses or shrink amounted to nearly $100 billion. And yeah, that term right there is important because it includes everything from like, we had a truck that was in transit. It never showed up.
Yep.
We don't know why. We're going to toss it onto our insurance. But
or trucks that get in accidents. Or
yeah, very true. And then it says that they are working with all levels of policymakers to address the serious issue of organized retail crime. Let's see. And here we get to select our state, California. And I didn't like their stats, so I looked up more because I was like 12.62% of the total U.S. retail theft, and it's like, yeah, we're also like that much or more of the population
of the national population.
Yeah, the national population. So I have more stats after this that show it's not quite so bad as this is painting it. But yeah, it is a shit ton of money, and at the same time, it's like how much of it is made up because everything I was reading said that there's not a whole lot of, recording and like, can we trust the numbers that are being given, or is this just a way for them to avoid paying taxes and no one ever has to reconcile it?
I like that lost tax revenue.
Yeah,
if the state would be fucking
tax them that high.
People are stealing it because they wouldn't buy it.
Yeah,
if they would buy it, like, so you can't count that as tax revenue.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but I think that's assuming that these businesses that are making all this money don't figure out ways to offset their taxes and pay less. Like, I think this is like an ideal world, and like this is probably the real world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then we talked about this.
There's
just
national stats.
I
thought this was really interesting. Scroll.
Small business. Yeah.
Right there. The average theft case.
Oh, gotcha.
So they are saying that it's billions of dollars or whatever, and that it's forcing retailers out. If the average, so if granted, of course, that's an average, but an average means a mean.
Yeah.
It means that all those really like, oh my God, they stole $300,000. That pulls the average up. That means the vast majority of people are stealing really not much.
Yeah. And a lot of times it is food, baby powder, etc.
Yeah, and it's just remarkable that it's like, oh, the average value is like right around $1,000.
Yeah. Just under the legal amount.
They're like, oh, look, it's grown. And I just want to be like, how much did inflation go up?
Right.
And also that was like right at the fucking pandemic when our country was like, oh, you're on your own. Sorry, bud. Right. They're like, oh no, your employer you can't work, but we're not going to give you any fucking money. You can apply for unemployment and get that, but it might take 2 months.
Oh my God. Yeah. Try not to steal anything while we're gone.
Try not to steal anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's also some kind of like macroeconomic trends, I think, in terms of the increasing desperation of the working class and poor people in this country that probably does translate to more theft. but I don't think that it's the cause of businesses going under. Go ahead.
No,
Maybe some small businesses, but then again, COVID maybe. Like businesses are struggling because people have no disposable income. It's not that complicated.
There's a fair number of small businesses that just fail due to failure. Like, oh, I thought I could run a shop. It turns out I have a really grating attitude and people don't like talking to me. Didn't know that was going to be an issue.
Or I really like fucking board games, but apparently I'm in the minority and there's not enough board game lovers to support a board game store.
Yeah.
Especially when the landlord increases the rent on the space and people are like, oh, it's fucking government taxes. No, it is not.
Yeah.
It's not the city charging a small business $80 a fucking year for a goddamn business license is not why that business is struggling. That business is struggling because the landlord just raised the rent $250 for the fourth fucking year in a row. And everybody that would be shopping at your store is too fucking poor to buy shit that they don't absolutely fucking need.
Yeah.
The economy is not complicated, dude. It's not.
You would think it is, though, from the way that they can't put themselves in the feet of the people at the bottom and just think about it from their point of view. I think that's the main thing. The economy is not complicated.
Income and healthcare and education and fucking housing costs too much to leave anybody with any money to go fucking spend at the board game store or whatever.
Yeah. Well, what we do here in Fresno is you have board games and beer. Same place. That way, if one fails, the other's still there. But
beer will always sell.
Yeah. Yeah. So mix it with your business that might not succeed. Winning combination. Yeah. Let's see.
So 56% of small businesses report theft of some kind.
Yeah. And then here we go.
Oh, here's the number. Yeah, I think I told you this. Oh, there it was.
Pharmacy, big box, home improvement, grocery. Yeah. Specialty and luxury near
7.
the bottom. Cell phone store near the bottom. Dollar stores poor dollar stores. They're ruining their community.
Yeah, electronics was 6. I think I was reading. I think I had the placing a little wrong on some of those, but you do find out that it's not the electronics and the luxury goods.
Yeah, don't even include phones.
Fucking thing that everybody's stealing. They're stealing shit they need, like fucking diapers.
Yeah, soft
fucking
goods.
Condoms.
Yeah.
We were talking about fucking stealing condoms.
I like this one. It's from our friends at Capital One, not sponsored.
Imagine that. We're not sponsored by Capital One.
But they have a they have a research arm, though, apparently. I believe it. They got to prove a lot of numbers to a lot of different people. Why the fuck wouldn't you have it? And what I like is you can search by state, and it gives you some fun numbers.
Billion, huh?
Yeah. And California is only responsible for 7.8, so like not even 10% of it. And I like this number. California retailers lost less than $260 per capita. So like
in sales per capita.
Not even the cost of like a new mid-range phone. And then we're actually lower than the national average. Imagine that when you break things out per capita with one of the most populous states, suddenly things don't look quite so bad.
Oh, shit.
Which one are you reading?
Return fraud.
Oh, return fraud. Yeah.
Because that's another loss that isn't this like fucking look at those colored guys going and fucking stealing shit. Right?
Yeah.
It's not sensational. It doesn't get your feelings all worked up where you're like, you know what I want? Fucking fascists and cops. I want more cops. I want cops because we got to put those black kids back in their fucking place.
Yeah.
No, most of the theft is people fucking doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Through like otherwise legitimate means.
Happens.
It's the fucking blonde haired white lady at the counter returning something she didn't fucking pay for. That's the fucking cost. Sorry, man. I'm getting all fucking worked up, bro.
No, it's okay. It actually happens a whole lot in big box stores and online, like Amazon and stuff like that. Amazon has a huge problem with your computer parts. At least last time I checked, about 2 years ago, they still had a problem where people would buy a high-end processor, claim that it was defective or whatever, or I didn't want it, and even like pay the restocking fee, but put a ship processor back in the box, like just for weight purposes, and then keep the nice thing, send the shit thing, and then even if they had to pay a restocking fee, it was very minimal, and that was pretty darn rampant, like across the expensive your computer parts land. And it's not just Amazon; it's anywhere that has online and like a good return policy. So like it's your geeky coworker who just talked about how he upgraded his processor for really cheap. It's that guy too.
So they lose an estimated $7.83 billion to theft,
right?
And return fraud
exceeds
them
that
more.
Yeah, so that kind of implies that these two are not
the same.
Yeah, like
they're not totally factoring separate. Return fraud as theft.
Yeah.
They're categorizing them differently.
Yeah,
which
so that makes sense.
Like that is the piece of that is a great piece of fucking information in your quiver to shoot this bullshit down when places like California Insider, which sounds like public TV station, it is not.
It is not.
They are.
I do not know, but they are definitely right leaning.
They're not just right leaning. They are funded. Have you ever seen the fucking ads for Epic Times?
No.
There's this fucking super right-wing news organization called Epic Times, and they had an ad blitz and got a bunch of subscribers and stuff a number of years ago. But they offer really far right commentary, and I always thought it was weird how they really focused on how terrible China was. It is operated by a right-wing religious organization called the Falun Gong, which is they're just kind of batshit crazy authoritarian right religious nationalists movement in China that's against the Chinese state, and on, and they did this. They created this international media operation called the Epic Times. California Insider is one of the projects of Epic Times, which is an international news organization that was constructed by a far-right religious anti-Chinese organization.
Well, that explains why those shirts made me feel not great.
Yeah, and I was just I actually have liked some of the things that they put out, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm glad that there's someone presenting facts. And then I had to dig a little deeper because I saw on one of their videos they have a politics show, very well produced, and I saw that they came back and said, hey, someone was like, oh, I have this crazy right-wing story about how the government's oppressing me, and they're like, hey, reach out to us, and they put their email address, and it was it wasn't a bot. It was legitimate. They were interacting with people in the comments, and they said, reach out to us because we want to hear your story. And it was an @Epic Times fucking email address. And that's when I was like, holy shit, I didn't know that. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting. But I do think that it's fantastic that we can now say when they're like, oh my God, businesses are leaving California because just Newsom is soft on crime and he just lets all these fucking niggers steal whatever they want. Whatever, dude. I'm so fucking over it. I fucking hate people so much. I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm a cross between homicidal and suicidal. It's just I'm a fucking mess, bro. I'm a mess.
I will see you next month.
Next month?
Yeah. We're still doing the thing, right?
What thing?
Next month.
Next month?
Yeah, near the beginning.
Birthday?
Yeah,
we're going camping for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'll see you then.
Oh, I'm just saying that people drive me fucking crazy.
Yeah,
because they will say oh,
you need a hug is what I'm saying.
Businesses are closing because fucking people can't afford it, and the real narrative is that people are fucking poor.
Yeah,
not that people are greedy, because that's what they're trying to flip the narrative to be.
That's actually what I put in our show description.
These poor corporations like Nordstrom's can't barely get by.
Can't barely make billions anymore. Yeah. No. Well, and that's okay. So every year when California happens every year, it seems has a thing about the the dialysis or clinics, and they're like,
Oh, right,
we're
right.
going to require that they have like one nurse for like every 40 people. They're going to require this and that. They're like, people are going to die, and it's like, I can guarantee you that if there is money to be made, that company will stay around. It'll just make less, or it'll pass the costs on to the customers or the taxpayers in the cases of people who are on like Medicaid and stuff like that. So I mean, like, they're not going anywhere because they're still making money, and these places are still making money. They're just cutting out the places that aren't making as much money because it's smart.
Really, and realistically, most of them will be absorbed into some kind of gigantic online retailer because
was
they have
thinking-
huge inventories that are still valuable. They still have kind of brand relationships that are still valuable. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I
the
was just
people that are
thinking-
operating these companies will get absorbed and they will continue to make money. The workers might get screwed a little.
Yeah.
Realistically, it's the landlords. Like, the rent's too fucking high.
Yeah.
People are too poor partly because the rent's too high, right? And everything just costs too much. Go ahead.
Something I find interesting is, so at some point the government had to step in and tell banks, like, banking is a necessity, and so we're going to make it so that if there's only like 2 or 3 banks in town, whoever leaves last gets stuck with it, more or less, is how it went. Like, it's highly regulated, though. They have to like plead their case and convince the government that they can leave that town. It's like, you'll find towns that only have one bank, no choice whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that bank cannot shut that down. Why not that for Walmart? Why not that for other services that are like almost a necessity at that point?
Well, I mean, where Walmart is a necessity, I don't think they're closing their stores. They chose to close stores in places where they weren't doing well. And then they want to blame it on theft because it helps with that kind of narrative. Like, Portland is lawless. It's just the left. The woke left is running fucking businesses out. It's just all part of we are so fucking close to fascism, bro. And like,
yeah.
And it's really hard for me not to feel fucking overwhelmed by it. Because like, I can see it so crystal clear. Like, climate systems are breaking down. Fucking, our energy system is breaking down. We're on the brink of fucking like 7 different goddamn wars. Like,
yeah. Well, basically, America's not the uncontested champion of the world anymore.
Right. And exactly. U.S. is going to lose global reserves currency in the next fucking couple years, and things are going to be very bad for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the United States is large enough. It has enough of a resource base to where, like, it's not like we're going to fucking collapse and the vast majority of us are going to starve. Like, it's going to be more like Britain getting rid of their empire.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot less painful than we think it is.
It's just going to be a matter of who you pay taxes to. That's really all that's going to change. Like, that's from talking to people, who have escaped war zones and stuff like that. Ultimately they're like, I just want to get back to my home, and really all that changes is who I pay my taxes to.
Yep.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. So,
do you have any more items on here?
No. Oh, well, we had ones from CNN and CNBC. They were going to contest the
the
shoplifting and say that it was not.
The numbers don't back it up.
Yeah, and we got CNBC and CNN jumping in.
So ultimately, and we can summarize this here.
Pretty easily.
Scroll down a bit.
Yeah.
Mass thief, blah, blah, posted to social media, of course. The metric incorporates. So here is they changed the way they categorize it, and they're talking about shrink.
Yeah,
they say the metric of shrink incorporates inventory losses is caused by external theft, including organized retail crime, employee theft, human error, vendor fraud, damaged or mismarked items, and other losses.
Yeah, and vendor fraud is something that you don't often think about, but a lot of the stores that have all these goods, they don't supply them directly. They pay a vendor to supply it to them, and he just puts it on the shelves. So, like,
and so he says, "Oh, I put 50 units on the shelf, And then you do your inventory and you're like, that's weird. I only have 35 units. Did we
Yeah.
sell 15 units? I don't think we sold 15 units, but there's only 35 units on the shelf. So I guess we must have.
Yeah.
Or we take a
Someone
loss
stole
on it.
them. Yeah. Or someone stole them. Or yeah.
Yeah. They must have got stolen.
Yeah. So I didn't really think about that, but yeah, that's a pretty easy place to do it.
Yeah. So vendor fraud, we're seeing return fraud.
Yeah. A lot of fraud here.
A lot of and then these
damaged and mismarked.
Yeah, just that.
Well,
and that could be increasing because you have more people. You have employee theft, or you just have employees doing fucking inventory wrong because they don't give a fuck about their job because you don't pay them enough to give a fuck about their job.
I mean, this nearly happened the other day. Getting a gift for the kid, the box, she took it out of the thing, like stuck it in between her legs and held it as she closed the door. Or you have to have two hands to close the door. A little bit of an oversight right there in the design. And then took it out and it was crushed a little bit, but thankfully it was a pretty sturdy box. But yeah, I mean, I could see damage like that happening, like someone walking along, they trip, oh no, nobody's fault.
Yeah, I mean, or it just when it's getting packaged at the factory or at the factory,
shipping,
there was some defect on the line they didn't catch, and so the products got shipped already defected. All manner of shit happens. But okay, I like this. So the retail industry's own figures on shrink cast doubt on their claim that the problem is ballooning. Researchers say retailers may be blaming theft for losses when they don't actually know the cause, which is the thesis of today's episode is
blame it on the thieves. Yeah.
It's just a election year way to get people drummed up, to love cops, to want to give more money to the authoritarian state by saying there's a problem that doesn't actually exist, or that does actually exist, but it's not being driven by the factor that you think it's being driven by, based on the headlines, based on people in Reading being like, California Governor Newsom's not going to even let us beat up thieves.
Supposed to be able to shoot them. This is America, isn't it?
I like this. Shrink is an issue where you've got a problem, but there's no way to know exactly where the losses are coming from. And if you keep scrolling, yeah, it's a lot. It's up 4%.
Yeah.
But it says, up 4% from the year before in 2021, but a huge jump from 2019.
Yeah. So basically, COVID. Imagine that in the 2 years of COVID, a whole lot more shit might have got stolen. That's what happens when you give, what was it, $1,400 or $1,200 total? Not enough to people.
Yeah, but shrink actually dropped as a percentage of sales.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is
sales were up because people were going back to work.
Well, not only that, but even when they weren't, people were bored and they were in the early part of the pandemic, people were actually buying quite a bit still. I remember we got the first payment and bought a robotic cat litter box. Put it right back into the economy, just like we said we would. That's the thing, they're like, well, we can't give the poor money, they'll just use it. And you're like, yeah, that's good for the economy, right? Come on, I'll give it right back to you, I swear. I've got debts to pay and shit to buy.
I think I spent mine on debt.
A lot of it was. And then
I didn't have a lot of debt, but I think I spent it on debt.
Yeah. Well, we kept working, so it was like, whatever. Not much really changed. Just got some free money.
So they talk about organized retail crime going up. Okay, that makes sense. And I also want to know, how much of that is being driven by this kind of bizarre culture we have of instant social media celebs, right?
Yeah.
I could imagine people filming some of this were like, oh yeah, let's do this and it'll be fucking great, and it'll be a rush and we'll go viral.
And then, not only that, but it's going to go viral on multiple things. The same person might see the same one framed, flipped, color shifted, more than once, think it's a different one, or even not care and just be like, it happened again.
Right. And it makes it seem more prevalent than it actually is.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's totally understandable. But yeah, I like this.
So they
Whatever the
do
numbers
explain
say,
here,
they're like, I don't care about your
they do
numbers. It's
explain
cutting worse.
here that
Go.
they think that the growth of online shopping has helped because now it's easier to get rid of stolen shit anonymously. Like,
Nice.
so you could sell it on Marketplace or, you know, on
Offer
eBay
up,
or whatever,
yeah.
and you can set up all whatever shells you need, you know, to hide it.
Mhm.
So anyway, keep scrolling. They said an average of just 7 cents for every $100 in sales.
Mm-hmm.
You know what we pay every dollar of sales? 7 cents.
Yeah.
That's our sales tax.
Ours is like 8 1/4. Ooh.
Yeah, I think Chico's is I think it's $7.50 statewide, and we pay $8.50 because we have an extra cent sales tax locally.
Yeah.
Cool.
Everybody else gets so up in arms about that, and I'm like, as long as the taxes are getting used for the right thing, I kind of don't mind. They just so rarely are. Oh well. Anyway,
Yeah.
Why are they
So
talking
many
about it?
brick and mortar chains are under pressure from Amazon and other competitors. Scroll.
Yep.
I'm at the bottom.
Yeah, I saw.
They've struggled with higher costs for labor, transportation, and other expenses, including rents, during the pandemic, as well as supply chain challenges. They have more control over shrink than some of these other. So it's kind of like retail theft is like the low-hanging fruit, which is why they're talking about it.
Yeah.
Because they don't actually have control over the macro factors that are ultimately causing it, right?
Yep. So blame it on the easy target.
Yep, and it's easier for companies and the public to blame theft for store closures and retail struggles than admit stores' overexpansion, strategy mistakes, and customers abandoning stores for online shopping, which of course it is, which is kind of my issue with so many things, is that it's just like it's easier to blame businesses downtown are struggling. It's easiest to just blame the fact that there's homeless people outside for this, rather than going more deeply and being like, wait, people don't have a disposable income because of all these other macroeconomic factors.
Yeah.
No, it's just the fucking hobos. No one wants to come shopping here.
Not only that, but like I talked to a lot of girls in college that would say like, oh yeah, I hate shopping in Chico because we don't have anything, so I wait till we go to Sacramento or the Bay Area to go shopping. More than
I know
one.
people who would drive from fucking Chico all the way to fucking Roseville.
Yeah, so like you can have a boutique, clothing store, but if it sucks and it's not in touch with what people are wearing, you're still not going to have a whole lot of sales.
Yeah, anybody that would be like, what are we doing today? What are we doing this weekend? Oh, we're going to spend Saturday and we're going to spend 4 hours in the car to go to the fucking mall that's 2 hours away. Yeah. All right, man. So what else? I think that was it, right?
There's one more, but it's more of the same. It is
more
in the
same,
show.
Then we can skip it.
Yeah, it is in the show notes though. So if you feel like it,
it is in the show notes.
CNBC tag teamed up with CNN to give their opinion. Very similar.
Cue the music.
Cue the music.
All right, folks. Today we talked about the retail apocalypse. Is it theft? As with just about everything in the news, it is a little bit more complicated than they might want you to believe. And certainly you should look at the narrative they are trying to spread and call bullshit on it, because they are trying to do that for a reason. In the case of the retail apocalypse, they're trying to obscure the fact that model of doing business doesn't work anymore. They're trying to obscure the fact or completely ignore the fact that people are poor and can't afford to shop at the Nordstrom anymore. They're trying to tell you that it's theft to justify hiring more police. They're telling you it's theft to obscure the fact that there's self-checkouts that put workers out of business, even though they are oftentimes somewhat convenient, are also systems that are flawed and are contributing to these shrinkages. Did I miss anything?
I think that about covers it.
Cool. Well, just keep an open mind and an open heart, and recognize that when the ruling elite, or the business elite in this case, is trying to tell you that there's a particular problem, and that the solution is more cops, right, and fewer poor people, or more punishment for poor people, that there's probably a little bit more to the story. And this has been With Thunderous Applause, where we would like to remind you that when liberty dies, it dies
With thunderous applause.
Thank you, my friend. Y'all have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Peace.